Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to No Ordinary Woman Chat Show, a platform to inspire. How's everybody doing on this glorious Sunday? We hope everyone is well. How you guys been finding our series of Now What is Mental Health? Yes, hey, Janelle said anyway. Oh, Janelle, I can't believe it's actually come to the final now.
No, we're at the end.
Yes, we are now at the end of No Ordinary Woman Chat Show. Not the end of the platform itself, but we're at the end of the Mental Health Awareness Week.
Yeah.
This is the grand finale.
So all this week we've been doing live and we've had special guests, and thank you for all of those who have been joining us. We really appreciate your support, and we hope that you found it inspiring and you picked up some great tips and advice on how you can cope with your mental health. And as Kaz said, tonight we have our final guest, and we're really excited for her to join us. And I will leave Kaz to do the grand introduction.
Yes, thank you, Jay. Yes, so tonight we have an amazing woman. Her name is Keeley Taverner, and she's a psychologist. She's a director of Key for Life. And basically this woman, she has just got so much gem. I'm on one of her programs called Pain to Purpose now. It's just about looking at your pain, the trauma, things that you've gone through in life, and then turning that into purpose. And that's what she literally done with her own self. But I'm not really going to go too much into it because I just want to allow Keeley to be able to share her story for us so that we can also be inspired. And without further ado, I think it's just only right that we bring Keeley onto the show now. But it doesn't look like Keeley's even there just yet. But I'm going to request all the same. So feel free to put any questions out there. If you have any questions for Keeley, please do put your questions into the comment box so that we will ensure those questions will be asked. Just bear with me one moment.
What is this technical setup, eh, Kaz?
Tell me about it, right? It's just...
For anyone who watched The Clash last night, actually, it was fantastic between Bounty Killer and Beanie Man, and Versus TV, Swiss Beats, Timberland. Big up to you guys for the culture, because you know what? The setup was fantastic. And, couldn't fault it technically. It was such a good time. So thank you so much, guys, for putting that on, because we literally need that in this time. And to be honest, that gave me life.
Definitely.
Just being able to jam and see the two of them just coming together, clashing but in unity. It was a moment in time. So yeah, thank you very, very much. All right, you found her?
No, she's not coming up.
All right, well, Keely's going to join us soon enough anyway. And once she does,
we'll just add her on there.
Yeah, I don't think she's joined us just yet, to be honest. But once she does, we will add her on.
I guess we can just really talk about the now what is mental health. What's been our greatest takeaway so far? For myself, I think it's kind of really difficult because they brought so much information about themselves personally, the professionals as well, in terms of the tips that they've given to us, and just really about us being able to, if you know anybody that's going through mental health issues, that you can actually get in contact with, like your local counsel. That was something that neither one of us actually knew, and that was great advice. So thank you so much, Zainab, for sharing that. Zainab was our guest on Friday, so please do check her out on Instagram Live.
Well, check out all our guests. You can watch our lives back. We've actually put them up on YouTube. So everybody we've spoken to this week for Mental Health Awareness Week, all of those chats and live discussions are up on YouTube. They will also be up on our IGTV. So if you missed it, please guys go over there and have a look. And make sure you actually subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, because we have some great content on there. And as I say, all of the chats that we've had this week are up there as well. And there's been some really inspirational moments, really inspirational stories. Yes. Hey, Yvette.
And Yvette also shared her story, being a mother whose daughter and granddaughter, basically a daughter took her life last year, and that was due to mental health. So her story was very inspiring. And I think what was great about Yvette's story is the reality of those who are not educated or don't have the knowledge to actually deal with anybody that's dealing with mental health issues. You understand what I'm saying? Because there's been such a stigma to it, it's like, well, this is not really going to affect me, or, you know, they're going through what they're going through. You're just thinking, oh, they're just having a bad day and things like that. Whereas Yvette really bravely just shared so much information so that, you know, I'm sure somebody out there can actually relate to it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's what we've been doing. We've been, not enough is being said around mental health, and we need to normalise these conversations. And that's been the theme for us and the key for us all of this week, hence why we've done lives every single night, all this week, just to raise awareness around mental health issues. And there are so many different types of mental health issues, you know, just raising awareness and for people to have an understanding and know that they've got a place to go and know that they don't need to suffer alone.
Definitely. Because the thing is, ultimately, is there's so much of us that's actually been suffering in silence. And, you know, you don't need to suffer in silence. There is help out there. There's talk therapy. There is the Samaritans. I think Yvette was saying there's Rethink as well. So there is so many talk therapy that you can actually connect with and just have that conversation. Then a single point of access as well within your borough as well. So you can even just Google and get the 0800 number, which I believe is a free number. And you can also, you know, speak to somebody there safely as well. So there's not going to be any judgment at all. But it's really just to get that help rather than you internalizing it. And, you know, just, yeah, it's just crazy. But
so let's see if we have got Keeley now. Thank you guys for joining us. I can see a few people joining us. Hi out there to Mike Wire. Hello, Marlo. Thank you for joining us. Pregnancy Without Fear. We see you. We're just waiting for our guests to join us. Keeley, as Kaz mentioned, she is a counsellor and a psychotherapist. And she also has her own company called Key for Change, whereby she helps people going through their own mental health struggles to change their life, essentially. And Kaz, you know, you spoke about the fact that you've been doing her course. So Keeley, if you're out there and you're listening, come online because we cannot wait to speak to you, my dear.
yes.
Hi, Sarah. I can see you.
Yes.
So let's check. Okay, so guys, I'm just going to let you know for now, I have an iPad in front of me, right? Kaz and I are multitasking here.
She's watching The Clash from yesterday, yeah?
No. Kaz and I watched The Clash all day today. It was on replay, but we're not here to talk about The Clash. We're here to talk some serious issues. But yeah, so I've got an iPad here. So if I look down, it's because I'm looking at the comments on the iPad. And also just, you know, keeping track of any questions that you've asked, etc. So I can see Keeley now. Okay. Keeley is with us.
Keeley's in the building. Let's go to request her right now. So do bear with me, guys. I'm going to request Keeley. Yes.
Yes, Keeley.
Yeah. Greetings,
hey,
how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
We are great.
Superb, good to be here.
You look so fresh, like you're glowing.
Boy, I just had to scrape the hair back a little bit of brush.
You did an awesome
Swipe
job.
on through your lipstick.
Yeah, man. Lockdown looks good on you, for real. You're glowing.
Amen, give thanks.
Yes, definitely. So, Keeley, we've made a soft introduction about who you are, what you do, etc. So, if you don't mind just sharing, just give us just, well, as short as you potentially can about who you are, how you got your business started, and how you became a psychologist as well.
Okay, so I guess my journey into psychotherapy was based on my own trauma and finding myself in a violent one-way relationship and not believing that this was my life, that was like my fate, like that was going to be it for me. I think that for me was really difficult. And so at the time, so I'm from St. Ralph's, I was working at IKEA. Excuse me, can you leave the yellow bag behind, please? That was That was me. I was at the checkouts, and it's my job. And then I used to do reshop. And one day I just had this epiphany. I'd just started to read self-help books. And when I was doing the yellow bags, I was down in the yellow bags, picking up the stuff you guys pick up, round the shop, and then fling at the checkouts. Yeah, that was me picking it up. And this voice in me was like, you can do better than this. You can do better than this. And I had no true, real reason to believe I could. I didn't have any GCSEs. I hadn't left school with anything. But I honored that voice and I knew it was true. And so basically, right, I started with the self-help, Jan Van Sant, so many Black women have. And I think one of the things that makes me different about self-help books is I take action. Because self-help books in my profession get a lot of stick. You know, that they sell the solutions and, people aren't able to achieve it. But I think one thing I did was I took the steps. I took action. And so what I did is I signed up for an access course to social sciences. I got into Brunel. I made sure I did a sandwich degree so that I would get work experience.
Right.
And then, so I got work experience at Wormwood Scrubs prison. And then when I got my degree in 2007, I got my first job there. So we got all that man them on A wing, B wing, C wing, D, S wing. You don't know. Yeah.
Up to the HMP massive, they're people too. We cannot leave them out.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, it's very true, and it's not to deny that they've done very complex crimes, difficult things, but that job. So I stayed there for 8 years, where I worked up to probation. And then I just hit that glass ceiling, even though I was investing in my own education privately, that every job I went for. So I was a group facilitator. So I worked on the accredited offender behavior programs. And so like the kind of mecca in terms of offender behavior programs was the sex offender program, because it was more interesting work. It wouldn't just be based on cognitive behavioral therapy. It was also about looking at basically psychoanalysis, attachment theory. So it was more complex cases. I think I applied for that job 4 times, and on the 5th, they declined me again. And that voice again was like, you never applied for another job with them, because I knew my confidence was starting to wane. And typically in that public sector role was a whole wave of Black women on the front line doing the grassroots work. Yet, as you moved up the tier, the shades, went to just sit there, and and I had great ideas, and they weren't interested in ideas; they were interested in outcomes only, which were getting enough people for a group. And so basically, the ethos in probation is risk follows resource. So because I was there for a number of years, basically guys would come in with low-level offences, but because they didn't have sufficient risk, they wouldn't get any interaction from probation. So by the time, and obviously I'm a local girl from a local estate, so by the time I'd been there for 8 years, those guys' offences had escalated, so then they were able to interact with myself on offender behaviour programs. And I just felt like, I hadn't sacrificed. I was a mum. I wanted to make a difference. And I knew that it wasn't going to happen in this bureaucratic, outcome-led place. However, what I'd also done in 2008, when I had got my full-time job, is I began part-time to do my psychotherapy qualification. Right. So I was working full-time, studying part-time, and then in 2012, and I think one of the reasons why I started my own practice was because I trained at an affluent institute, where I was exposed to people who were from affluent backgrounds. And as inadequate as I felt, being that, I was from an estate, I hadn't been born into privilege, that process of exposing myself to different people exposed me to a different mindset. Mm-hmm. And so the ethos was that you just open up your private practice. It wasn't a big deal, because people had big houses and would just clear out the room and have a clinical practice. So that really inspired me, and my tutors were very much about me remaining true to myself as I battled with, remaining true to my roots, yet also, moving into a very middle class world, a middle class profession. And so for me, 2012 was when I started my business, Key for Change, whilst I juggled and hustled at the prison. And then by 2015, we'd had the cuts. And then what the prison did was they allowed the young offenders to come in from Feltham. And that just changed the whole dynamic in the prison. It just changed the whole dynamic in the prison because we weren't prepared for that many young offenders. And the place became scary. There was also job cuts. There was also a new process being rolled out for officers, which they were fighting against. So the whole environment became pretty dangerous, I was never used to walking on wings, feeling shook. And that started to happen. I'd get scared. I'd see proper bundles, blood, and I'd never seen that before. The prison, as bizarre as it seemed, had always felt safe. So for me, I think in 2015, I said I would take a sabbatical and throw myself into my business, Key for Change. And that's what I did. So my sabbatical ended in May, the 1st of May, and I'm still here, out here, making a way out of no way. And so what I do is I use my own creativity to help people in a whole raft of ways, So traditional therapy isn't for everybody, and I fully respect and I understand that, especially being someone who's from a grassroots background. That for me is like really important, that I honor that this traditional Western psychology model doesn't fit everybody. And so I work with people in terms of where they're at. Of course, I hold my own boundaries, but it's particularly important I'm adaptable and flexible to different people's needs, different people's incomes, and respectful of the fact that here I am putting out all these videos talking about self-responsibility. Yet if I sustain my, the fee I should charge, then, the community, the people from where I've come from will definitely be excluded, which was not what I got into this for. I got in to make a difference. But now I feel very privileged that I have a clinic in Uxbridge, a team of other colleagues who work together. So I don't work with under 18s because of the paperwork and all the legal framework around it. It's just too complex. But I have colleagues who, like drama therapists, who do Big Up Judy. And so, if I have a psychiatrist, I have psychologists. So there's a robust team of professionals around me that support me as we help people from all manner of backgrounds, as well as class backgrounds.
So how do people get referred to your service then? Are they referred to your service, or do you go, is it more outreach? How does that work?
No, people pay privately. Right, I don't want any government funding. I don't want to spend my time filling out application forms or having to write bid writers, because it's a nonsense to me. And I don't want to spend half an hour with someone and an hour writing out an evidence-based tick sheet so the KPTs can be hit, because how I work, outcomes can't be measured like that. Humans are complex beings. And so say if you go into the NHS, they're highly likely to have you do a PFQ and the GAD-7 form, which gives numbers. Now that's what the government require, because basically they want you to have a reduced score at the end. Basically, some argue that the ambition is to make sure you keep working. We just want you to be plastered up and gone again. But the challenge is people come to me after they've had such interactions, because what's happened is some of the coping strategies that they've developed have become redundant. And a coping strategy will always become redundant because it's a coping strategy. It's called cope. And so what happens is when people's coping strategies stop working, because they will, because the root cause hasn't been ascertained, the problem morphs, adapts, or changes. And often people think something's wrong with them, like, what's wrong with me? I'm doing what they've said. And it doesn't hit the sides anymore. But that's because the root cause hasn't been, it hasn't been exposed. Hasn't been exposed for scrutiny. So, so I'm usually the last option often for people. Or they've tried everything else and they've heard, oh, well, I heard you're a bit different, or you're just real. That's one of the things people appreciate me, is my realness. And I guess, it's being a truth teller. However, there's also a shadow side to that. That type of therapy is not for everybody. However, I want the best for you, and sometimes people aren't telling us it straight. you know,
Well, you
or
mentioned about root cause, right? And dealing with the root
yeah,
cause. So not just coping strategies. Because coping strategy is like a paper over a crack or a plaster on a wound that hasn't really, it's got an infection and hasn't really healed. So this is what we've been speaking about all week, is actually delving under the surface and dealing with the root cause of whatever it is you're going through. Because until you deal with that, it's always going to be a problem, right?
Yeah. So I mean,
well, it will morph and adapt.
Yes.
It morphs and adapts.
Yeah.
And so I'm an advocate of a coping strategy if you know what the root cause is.
Yes.
Then we can talk about that.
But this is the thing. I mean, you know, because I mean, we had a cognitive behavior therapist on Friday, and that was one of the things that we was discussing in regards to, yes, you know, you can be going to see your GP, etc. But at the end of the day, what they tend to do is just feed you with the medication rather than dealing with what's actually going on. Do you understand what I'm saying? And in regards to that, would you then say that's the reason why we're having so many cases dealing with, say, mental health illnesses?
Well, I'm actually
dealing with the.
Well, I don't think the problem is mental. I think mental health problems are an outcome of people being inauthentic
with themselves.
Well, they don't know who they are.
Right. So just explain that, like stick on that, because that's really important. Like this is the first time we're speaking about that, and you've talked about not being authentic with yourself. So just can we explore that idea that you've just raised?
Yeah. Well, this would be what I'm doing my doctorate on, which is that people are inauthentic. They don't know who they are, so they're disconnected from their true authenticity, and they occupy a false self. Now, sustaining a false self is extremely exaggerating. So while people say I'm particularly real, I know what the cost is of being fake and inauthentic on your whole psychology. So most people don't know who they are. For example, if you've been conditioned that you're not allowed to play the banjo because your parents have wanted you to be a high achieving academic and you've done advanced maths, then the part of you that is creative and wants to be nurtured is suppressed and repressed. So you repress and suppress it from your own self. So you're already in conflict with yourself. Now you've got the house, the car, the wife. Everything looks superficially fine, yet you're disconnected from your authenticity.
Yeah.
You're not living your truth. You're not being yourself.
You don't know who you are.
But you don't know who you are. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously you're going based upon what's being taught to you. So when we look at society now, it's like, okay, for you to be living that true, the way society is saying that you have to have, you know, the 2.2 children, have your husband, have the house, have that career, etc. But a lot of us is doing those things, but we're still not happy. Do you know what I'm saying? So I guess going back to what you're saying, it's like you're not being true and authentic within yourself, because we don't actually know who we are until we really kind of like explore that area. Does that make sense to you?
Well, of course, but the challenge of authenticity is you experience rejection and ridicule, name calling, because people want you to get back in the box. You know, I don't watch television. I don't read the news. I don't put on any news. I don't have that in my environment. I don't allow it into my psychology because of the levels of manipulation. So you then start to occupy a different space where people find you a little bit odd. They're like, oh, you've read too much books, Key, you've taken it too far. Family find you difficult because you're not the person you used to be. And so to be able to etch out your own authentic path to become your true self takes sacrifice, risk, is scary. You need to have faith. Yeah. You know, and you need a tribe. You need your tribe. And I'm very blessed that I have my tribe of safe people around me who are also on their journey to become their authentic self. So I don't intimidate them. Because we are all in it together. But when people aren't, that's why my inner circle is so tight. So if you're not on that path, I have to best protect myself. I'm a very smart woman, so I'll use humor. I'm funny, so I can use that to keep people at bay. You know, and I've been on the journey long enough, so I know the presence that I have, and I know what that can do to people who are often in the dark, and you know, red or the blue pill. So red or the blue pill. Yeah. Come on. And let's be honest, when you take the third eye pill, when you start to get real, you can't go back to not knowing what you now know. That's why in the film The Matrix, the man wanted to go back because he was like, this is just too much for me. And we also know that the Matrix was, you know, a film created by Sophia Stewart, who was a black woman who, you know, Hollywood stole her film, and it was based on the return of Jesus. You know, so there's a lot of levels, and there's a lot of reasons why people are disconnected from themselves, because you only have to open up your feed and you can see that people are binge consuming Netflix.
That's right. Binge consuming everything. Binge consuming social media, binge consuming everything. But back to what you just said, this is something that we touched on with Natisha yesterday, which is that you need to be connected with your inner self, with your spirit, whatever you want to call it. If you don't connect with that true inside you, then you have no sense of direction. You don't know where you're going, and you're not actually being your authentic self. And that causes problems.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a journey to ascertain and uncover it. It's a constant process of unfolding. You never arrive. It's a journey. It's life's experience. It's how God manifests in your life when you stop wanting to be in control and you surrender to the Creator's power. So it's not a place you unfold it in yourself. You constantly, like an onion, you keep discovering it. Like a doctorate's dropped into my awareness. I've not wanted to do a doctorate, yet the theory, the Pain to Purpose course, the reason why I want to do a doctorate is because I know that course is on point.
Yeah.
And I want to do the research around it to just, I don't even need to. I want to do it. And a doctorate gives me the framework to be able to do that, because I know that the real true issue are people are totally disconnected from themselves. And that no one's talking about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you are, Keeley. Yeah, because you've been doing the course, haven't you?
Well, I've started a course and we're going into the 3rd week now, aren't we, Keeley?
And it's called Pain to
Purpose. And the reason why I jumped onto this course, it was really, I would just say it was spirit ordained, because I literally, my Wi-Fi disconnected and I was having some issues. I was supposed to be working, and then I just went onto my own data, and Keeley was there doing a live. And she was just really just talking from within herself, talking about her own personal experience, her journey, and then obviously speaking about the course, the program that she's doing. I was like, yo, this is what's up. I need to jump onto that. So I just instantly just booked. It was not even a thing where it was about money or anything. It was like, I don't even care if I don't have it. I need to find it. I'm doing this course because it was, you know what it was? It was just, for me, it was the pain, turning your pain into purpose. Because I know I've gone through so much trauma, and I've had like talking therapy and things like that. But there was certain key things that you was actually saying, that you actually spoke about yourself. I literally was in tears. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was in tears because I've been on this journey for my life. You understand what I'm saying? And even doing your program, even like last week, Thursday, was something I said, to be quite honest, the reason why I said, oh, you chief, is because I felt embarrassed because everybody's watching me and I did something incorrect kind of thing. So I created a story and then I said something about myself, and then I tried to style it out. And Keeley was like, no, we don't do that in here. Because this is showing me what you are telling yourself internally. And I was like, yo, this is Pete, because that's what I've been doing. You know, it's that dialogue that I've been having with myself, you know, to kind of like counteract why I do the things that I do. But what that's actually doing is preventing me from really being my true authentic self, because I'm already speaking death into myself, which is not real. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, which is unconscious. Which is unconscious, because it wasn't, you were unconscious and you were just being yourself. Yet to me, that's the alarm, that unconsciously you would call yourself such a name, which is a window into how your think stream must be, which must be so brutal when you're experiencing life, because you wouldn't treat a child trying to walk as it fell down in such a manner, because we encourage it. And so that would suggest there's a lack of compassion
for
within
yourself.
self.
And that
you're not, you know, and that.
So I'm getting excited by hearing about this course. Obviously, I haven't been on the course. Kaz has been going through it. So, Keeley, tell us a bit about the course. What does it offer? How long is the course, and what does it offer? What do you do?
So basically, the course is obviously, as an experienced therapist now, I see themes. I see themes with people. I was saying to my coach, I'm never bored of my work. I love my work, but I could just see themes. And so we looked at how do I bring those themes together because before people could only work with me on a one-to-one, which is where the prices are higher. Whereas if I could bring the themes, I could create programs. I've delivered programs for probation for years, so I could create my own program. I also have my own workshop. And so I had a workshop called Feel Loved for people who attract one-way relationships. And then the course after that would be Pain into Purpose. Because from an existential perspective, pain is a natural part of life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, our society promotes perpetual happiness, which makes people sad because they always feel like they should be at a particular destination and they never catch the carrot. No matter what material gain they have around them, they don't achieve it. So some of the theories are long-winded, and so what I did was, and I think I'm very good at doing this, is breaking down complex theories into really simple ways that people can understand, and they're like, oh, I get it. So for me, that will enable me to support people, but I also know that the power of the group means that, you know, people can have accelerated learning in very different ways.
And
so
that energy, sorry, I was just going to say, in the group session, that energy and that interaction itself must be a bonus. You know, you're talking about you did one-to-one sessions before, but actually having people doing it as a group, sharing experiences, that's what we found this week, is that, you know, the feedback we've been getting from people who've been watching these lives is that watching others share their experience and resonating with certain things, you know, that's been really, really powerful. By the way, I just want to say before I forget, there's like 2 people on the Manhood Academy has said, Dr. Taverner, you need to do that doctorate. Manu has said, Dr. Taverner, the next stage, you're a brilliant therapist. So, you know what? Maybe there's a message in here tonight for you as well with doing your doctorate.
No, she already knows this. She already knows.
Yeah, I know. God dropped it into me. I know. Yeah. I don't like it. Don't think my ego, my lower self is not like, oh, Skippy, but I know it's the way I have to go. Because remember, they're going to come for me. They're going to come for me because I'm going to present a different viewpoint to what they're ramming down people's throats. Because what they're saying is, you don't need to audit your phone. Still do what you're doing on your phone. Just take our pills and you'll be okay, even though you're being triggered every time you open the damn thing. So you know what happens? You know what happens to people who think outside the box?
Yeah. It's shut down, babe.
We do.
Yeah.
So there we go. You know, so
but that's not going to happen to you. No, not going to happen.
Oh no, I expect it. I don't have a problem with it because I've been experiencing this the whole time. You know, when I worked in the prison, I was always clashing with the psychologists because they come from a DSM-4 medical model of human beings. Whereas I'm about, well, what about society? What about the fact that half these boys here are from my estate and they know me? How about the fact that they've got less access to opportunity? Why are there hardly any Jewish people in prisons?
Yeah.
What about the trauma we were talking about?
We was talking about trauma as well. Obviously, you know, with slavery, etc., and how embedded that is within us. So how can we then move forward?
But also our young people as well.
Because it goes through the generation, but not also, even though it's going through the generation, but it's also the trauma that they're actually dealing with now. You know what I'm saying? Because there's certain things that's going on for our young people that, you know, is undescribable. But so much of them is actually internally carrying that. They're not speaking to anybody. Do you know what I mean? If they're being raped by another boy, things like that. Shit.
They're losing friends.
They're losing, you know, these are things that are actually happening in our society right now. So how do we do?
But I mean, if you break down the challenge is, like I said, what is it about the Jewish community? I mean, they're not in prison. And I said it to my boss. I said, I know the solution to prison is to become Jewish. She laughed. And I said, well, how come there's no Jewish people here? I'll tell you why there's no Jewish, hardly any, a very low percentage of Jewish people in prison is because they have family. And you have to be looking at the family structure. And we know often, especially people from the Caribbean diaspora, We know what's happened to the males. We're still dealing with the legacy of trauma in our males, and what that's done, and the outcomes of the hyper alpha female, and what that's also done, and what also happens to the exemplary brothers. Why Black women feel that they don't want them. Yeah.
But then how sorry, carry on, Keeley, I'll ask afterwards.
Well, I think the challenge is, as Oprah says, you know, she has her own network, and we don't own shite. We still go to the same system that oppresses us, wanting them to provide the solutions, where actually they benefit from our own misery. You know, government funding gets this, and, you know, there is money to be made out of the social ill issues. So the challenge, I don't believe, lays with more, you know, me sitting there paying someone to write a bid for some dust money that they'll withdraw from me as soon as another problem arises somewhere else, and then I've lost my staff and my business is on the brink of break. We need to create our own. And so when the organizations, government agencies want our service, they contract it from us on our terms.
That's right. Yeah. Definitely.
I mean, that's what.
And I've seen projects in prison that do that. I've seen art projects, theatre projects that do that in the prison. But you know, they're all people from the top of the food chain. They're not providing stats in the same way. Yet, you know, so there's a whole thing about stats that just kills the work. And so I work for myself. The people come to me, and we always find a way. And I think that is so important, because one of the pillars of my Pain to Purpose course is self-responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, this
just
whole handout.
Talk a bit more about self-responsibility. What, for those who are wondering what it is, what do you mean by that?
Well, the challenge with self-responsibility is that we no longer see ourselves as a victim, which always gets people really annoyed with me. But when we are a victim, we also, if you're not careful, you'll develop victim consciousness, which means you start to blame the world for everything. You know, victim consciousness does not mean you weren't a victim. However, if you choose to let that, whether you unconsciously choose to let that govern the entire life, then you've developed victim consciousness. And the antidote to that is to become self-responsible. Which results often in you not being able to blame, which is why I perceive it as a spiritual dynamic, because it needs to be complemented with things like acceptance, surrender. It needs to be accompanied with faith. None of my training as a psychotherapist has talked about the relevance of faith. Faith as a principle is fundamental to change, because you have to believe. You may not have evidence, but you have to believe somewhere that change will come. Prisoners taught me this. I could tell the prisoners who were coming back to prison and the ones who weren't, because it was in the word. You could hear it in the word. And they had faith, and they were doing things alongside that to best assist themselves. So self-responsibility is where you work out that the guy who you linked last night, who treating you like rubbish, well, it never just happened like that, my girl, because you unblocked him again. Yeah? So I teach people, I show people the nuanced behavior, the seemingly insignificant choices that we make that create our reality, where often people violate. My clients in the main tend to be empaths who are not woke and who don't know how best to protect themselves. So they go around giving love, 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 love all the time. They don't get it back, and they're baffled why.
But you know what? I love what you're saying right now. I really do. And Kaz has explained a bit to me about your course, etc. And I absolutely, you know, resonate with what you're saying right now. But I can imagine that there's people that come on your course. Of course, everybody who probably, you know, comes into contact with you and hires your services wants help, needs help. But there's probably some people who come on your course and you're telling them the real hardcore, raw facts truth. And they probably say, well, why are you judging me? You're judging me. How do you navigate that with those people who are thinking, I didn't come here to be judged. I came here for you to help me.
I don't really tend to have that problem. People who work with me already been watching me for years.
Right. So they know what
they like the slap lines.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to be told.
Yes, we
it's
do.
Not. Listen, I don't have to convince nobody. Truth is truth, you know. If you want to do your cartwheels in your mind and do avoidance denial, that's your game. That's because your growth is not my responsibility.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Yeah,
so
right.
I don't take any responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're open? You could be defensive, but if you're curious and a bit like, you know what, Key, I always react like that, then me and you can work.
Yeah, because you're being open and honest with, and you're
Well, because
you're willing to take
defense
responsibility.
defense is always protecting a vulnerability.
Yeah.
You remember, so for our sisters who've got the angry black female stereotype to contend with, she's probably one of the most incredibly hurt human beings. And what we see is the top of the iceberg is the behavior, is the anger and the attitude. But it won't take me too long to dig down, and you'll see the most precious vulnerability that is hidden in a fortress with a moat. Like no one could get to that vulnerability. You know, so, you know, I know enough about what defense is about. Defense is always about resistance. And so there must be a nugget of truth in there that irks somebody.
Yes, I like that. When you mash someone's corn, there's something in there, isn't there?
Yes.
In there.
Yeah.
But if you then say there's nothing, then you know what, yeah? I ain't the therapist for you, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I'm blessed, you know.
Yeah, no, but you've got to keep it real, Keeley. You've got to keep it real.
I'm good, you know.
Yeah.
I'm good. There'll still be food on the table. By God's grace, I've made it this far. So don't think like I'm gonna be stressed out. That's not my responsibility. Who is for me finds me. And most people who find me because they say they don't know. They can't always find the words, but they say they just knew.
Yeah.
They want to work with me.
You know, somebody said Sis Key is good indeed. Can you hear us? Sis Key is good indeed. Put your trust in her and she will deliver your soul. That's powerful. That's somebody's testimony about you, my aunt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I can connect with people's souls because I know you know people. I can feel people's essence. Yeah, the journey is you know, I can give people the truth, but I also respect how entrenched self-sabotage can be, how difficult it can be, the journey to authenticity, the rejection, the isolation, the loneliness, going back to where you came from, not fitting in, going in new circles, not fitting in, you know, it's a challenge. But on the other side, if you can, you know, that's why you have to have faith. You have to keep your faith. Yeah, and that's why you can't be watching no Babylonian news. You can't be reading their newspapers because it's filled with fear. And it will work on your fear at an unconscious level. So you don't even know how they're working on your, in other parts of your brain. So you're best to put on Tutu Kirk Franklin CD and have your tribe of good vibes, chronics, whoever, to keep reconditioning your mind. Remember, we are reconditioning our minds and detoxing from the system, the matrix, the inferiority complex that they've planted in us that keep us being mediocre.
But as we're
mediocrity is the reason why most people are depressed.
Okay, but as we're on, right, okay, so as we're in the week of Mental Health Awareness Week, and now we're obviously coming to an end, so how is someone going to, like, if they're dealing with, say, anxiety, dealing with, you know, being a schizophrenia and things like that, how can they then know within themselves that they need help, or they can come to your therapy and it would actually help them when they don't even really recognize, or they not recognize that they have, like, maybe potentially a trauma kind of rooted problems? Do you know what I'm saying?
The trauma isn't for, you know, people don't always know that they're traumatized. So you have to have a robust, decent therapist who understands levels, who understands things like disassociation and how trauma shows up, especially complex trauma. It's often one of the reasons why people can't stay in the room. You know, I do EMDR. My other colleague also, Judy, does EMDR. Eye movement, desensitization, reprogramming. It's not something that tends to be offered on the NHS because it's considered to be costly. Depends on where you live. So I think for me, things like once you start and get into people who have lost touch with reality, that's not my lane.
Okay.
It gone too far. It gone too far. It gone too far up the M1. That's too far. Can't be, if you've lost touch with reality, that's not my lane. And I know my lane, and I know what's not my lane. Anxiety, in my view, is a disconnection from your authentic self.
Mm.
Your body is communicating to you, your spirit, your intuition, but you don't like what it's telling you. Or you
Well, you
don't
don't want
like
to
it. You
accept
often
it. You
already
don't want to
know.
accept it.
People already know. I only show people what they already know to be true for themselves.
Yeah.
So the anxiety is a conflict of being inauthentic. And I'll always pinpoint what it is for you. And once you get into the anxiety, you'll start to see where the resistance is. I could do it all the time. Someone would tell me, I would say, well, that's what you need to do. Remember, in the Pain to Purpose course, I teach what the principles are, which is you need to have faith, take the action, have the faith. But that takes people into fear because people have a psychology where they now need to know. No one wants to do with uncertainty. People want instant gratification.
That's right.
Who saves for a car anymore? Boom, boom, bam, boom.
Yeah.
You got a new car, you're paying it off for years, then you got to give them all 10 grand when the 4 years is done. So you've been hiring a car that you can't even afford.
Come on now, come on. Yeah.
Again,
So,
inauthentic.
Yeah, you're not being true to yourself. Do you know
but do you know how much people are going to have to hide now because they're going to lose stuff?
Come
And
on.
their psychology, their identity, their self-worth is attached to the double R Range Rover badge.
Illicit stuff. It's not within themselves.
They don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And that inadequacy means that they will shy away from people because they've developed a false self.
Yeah.
That so I don't mess in those lanes because people have to come to me in a state of pain. I know that, you know, I help people to get to the stuff that often they don't want to look at. You know, which is why I don't really have clients who have resistance. I really don't. They know they want to work with me. They're ready because they've tried so many other things.
Yeah. And they're ready as well. They're ready for that change.
They're ready.
They're ready
And
for that change.
people are investing with their own money.
Yes.
It's very different. Look what happened when they get out the metro for free. You find newspaper fling all around the train, on the tracks, everything, because nobody don't have no value for it.
Yeah.
When it used to be 20p for your son and whatever, £1 for your guardian, there weren't no problem with papers on trains because people don't value freeness.
Yeah, that's so true.
But when you have to actually take the time and the resources and the money to invest in yourself, that's when you're really going on that pathway of helping yourself. That's when you're really saying, you know what? I am at a place where I'm willing to take my money and spend it with somebody who is going to help me. That's true self-investment. And so many people, I think I saw a meme the other day where somebody had put up something like, I don't know, a Louis Vuitton bag versus a course for self-development. And with the new iPhone, I think it was. And the new iPhone said, oh my God, I can't wait for the new iPhone to come out. And on the same meme, it's like, that course is too expensive. Why would I spend money to do that? And basically what I'm trying to say is that it's the value. What do you place your value on? Yeah. If you value yourself, then surely you're going to invest in yourself. And surely you're going to go out there and say, you know what? I need this and I'm going to spend my money to do this.
And I think also, to add to what you're saying, is that people don't actually see themselves as being their greatest asset. Do you know what I'm saying? They don't see themselves as an asset. So if you don't, invest in yourself, develop yourself, grow different way of thinking or being to be your true authentic self, then it's like, then you're living a life where it's like, what's the point of you living? Do you know what I'm saying? Because you're not really getting to be, like you said, your true authentic self, but at the same time, it's like you would rather invest in other areas other than you. So it's like when you were saying earlier about loving everybody else but not loving yourself, then you're upset when people don't love you, but you're giving it to everybody else, but you never give it to yourself. I'm vouch for that because I'm still on that journey where I'm constantly speaking, listen to that negative dialogue within myself. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. You're not this. And I actually started to believe those voices. Do you know what I'm saying? But I had to start doing certain courses to make me realize that's not real. Do you understand? But in order for me to find out that wasn't real, because bear in mind, I've been living with that throughout my entire life. And because I've been living like that for the majority of my life, I was living in fear. I haven't been doing the things that I know within myself that I can do because I've been listening to that voice. And that ain't for me.
Even limiting yourself, it's limiting yourself, self-limiting thoughts, self-limiting beliefs, self-limiting.
Yes, but remember, there's also a seduction thinking that it's all some sort of inadequacy, some problem with the way that you think, we've been conditioned.
Yeah.
Which is why I get stick, or you're a bit much, or she's a bit this. That's why I have to have my safe tribe, because what happens is authenticity starts to intimidate, and that people project their stuff onto you. And so when I was in my vulnerable early stages, that would really kind of topple me and then make me question, like, oh my God, am I selling out? Have I forgot where I've come from? Do I think I'm too nice? Do I think I've read too many books? Oh, is it because, I shop at Marks and Spencer's now? Like, have I forgotten where all of that? Yeah. All of that will jolt you off.
Yeah.
And so I also think there is something about the poverty mindset. And the poverty mindset is also attached to a sense of entitlement. You expect what you expect. Like, it's a bit like me. Like, I invested in my own masters. I paid for that, because if I did the government funded ones, you could bet right that I'd be doing the models of psychology that they want me to invest, to believe in. So I go out and help according to the models. For example, CBT is one of them. It has its place. But that's not what I believed in. What I believed in, humanistic psychology, the human potential movement, that don't get no funding. So you know what? I'm going to take one on a non-government funded one. And then you know what happened? It developed my faith in the Almighty. Because now I don't know how the hell I'm going to pay for this course. But you said, walk by faith, not by sight. So I'm going to sign my name on this paper, and I'm going to have to trust if you say that I'm going to test this one then. And you see now, look.
Yeah.
So you then, when you do that, when you take a risk and a chance on yourself, God will always meet you. God always meets you in ways that you would never manifest. I work for myself now. Like, I was working at IKEA. I was at IKEA for 10 years. I got a special silver Allen key for 10 years.
Right.
And a £50 voucher. Lord,
them tighty, only £50 voucher, they give you tighty.
We were good though. We was good.
But you know what? It's the beauty of what you said is that you are living exactly what your beliefs. It's almost like you've gone on this journey, this vocational journey that's led you to this place of uniqueness, where you have this unique understanding, this combination of elements, like knowing that there was something better out there for you, coming from the grassroots and living amongst a lot of the issues that probably you're trying to help people recover from now, seeing it day to day. And I know that, coming from an estate in Northwest, and actually saying to yourself, I'm not just going to take the easy route or the common route, should I say, and become a psychologist and go down the government route, like you said, but I'm actually going to find the truth. This is what I'm getting from you, from your energy. Really dig down deep and find what I believe is the truth, and go forwards and make that into something and share that with others.
Yeah, well, I think the people show me the way. My clients, they love me, I love them, because I'm learning from them and they help me. Because it's harder to sell yourself short when I know that there's so many people. When I realized I had this business that I had to uphold, it's really much harder for you to self-sabotage with some idiot dude who you know is not on your level, even though you need little affection. Because if that is going to rattle your thing, the God bless thing in your life, that thing has to go, it has to go. Yeah. So, they have lifted me. I help them. It's such a beautiful two-way process. And I don't hear therapists talk about this, how our clients help us. So my theory is from the people up. It's not me coming with a theory and then trying to ram it down their throats, which is what often happens in mainstream, which is what you're going to get with CBT, which is we have the answers, do what we tell you, and then you should be fixed, really. No, I am informed by the people. And like what's happened with Pain to Purpose is it's synthesized my knowledge. And when I start synthesizing, God's going to start putting all kind of thing on your path. And you're like, oh man, this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Just like how victim consciousness had to come into the program, because, I felt when I was in an abusive relationship, I felt like I was a victim until I started to read some, a Yanla, and I got like, you allowed that. You were doing things that was enabling that to happen to you. I was like, oh God, was I? I thought I was a victim. No, fix yourself up. Yeah. I was like, oh, I needed that.
Yeah.
That made me curious.
Yeah. Because we're going to obviously have to wrap up now, because, well, obviously we're coming to the end of our
Listen, babyface tonight, yeah? Make you not know, yeah? Babyface tonight. I'm getting ready. I'm putting on tunes on me. I'm a little juice over there. It's all about babyface tonight. Some real love tune.
Ladies, let's stay here. Let's stay here, because we're digressing and I'm thinking about the time. What tips,
babyface.
5 tips, okay, besides babyface, that's happening tonight, but what 5 tips would you give to our viewers or anybody that's going to watch the live or the Instagram, YouTube, that you could give to them to really just like encourage them, especially in this pandemic time? What 5 tips could you give to anybody, whether they're dealing with mental health or just searching within themselves?
Stop watching the news. It's not good for you on many, many, many levels. It's not good for you. Trust me, it's really not. So limit that stuff. Start to become the guardian of what goes in your earlobes. This is one of the most important things we own. And if you don't control it, they will control it for you. 2, I'd say go to my website. Go to keyforchange.com. You can pin my website at the bottom. I can't do that here. But I have a raft of a range of things. www.keyforchange.com. You can use number 4, FOR. I bought 2 of them. I have a whole raft of downloadables. One of the things that I find the most helpful, and I started using this in prison because the guys had such limited viewpoints of what they could do. If you don't know who you are, one of the things I encourage people to do is to download my bucket list. A bucket list is a great way to work out what you truly resonate with. You're just, I like that. So I would say download the bucket list if you don't know who you are. 3, I would encourage you to develop a playlist of music that lifts your spirit. Amen. And then you're going to need, you need it, because it's serious spiritual warfare out here. So you need some music to fortify yourself, and you need a song to break in case of emergency.
Yeah. Well, we heard from Leah, and Leah spoke about having a letter to yourself in case of emergency. But I love what you said about have a song break in case of emergency too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My one is Yolanda Adams. This too shall pass.
This what shall pass?
These 2 things shall pass.
This too shall pass by Yolanda Adams.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So you need that song, so many of my mum's a Ras, so much of the songs that have helped me to get through have all been, and that's where I realized the importance. You need to get out of your head. A lot of people are living in their heads, and that's really unhelpful, because your head will always be trying to work things out, and we'll get into this need to know. I need to know this, need to know that. So you don't develop faith. You don't walk a spiritual walk, because you're focused on the material and the scientific world. So how many is that? Was that 3?
That's more than
3. I think
that's 5. And we got we do not want the Matrix to cut us off. We want to finish without the Matrix cutting us mid-conversation. So we have
and I would say watch the Matrix, watch the first Matrix. And I would say also check out Sophia Stewart, who is the mother of the Matrix. Check her out on YouTube. Listen to her stuff. Listen to, people who are talking about alternate realities, because there's levels in terms of what's going on. And I liken what I do to people coming to me into the dark, red or the blue pill. And I feel like that is literally some of the work that I literally do. And what is really beautiful is that once people understand, they get it.
Yeah. It just all falls into place.
Even if they're still hurting themselves, they know what they're doing. And there is a comfort in knowing that, what, I'm going to stay with this idiot dude, but because I need to sort out, it's not my time yet. So there is also a comfort in that, because another part of you might start, strategically developing just your way out plan.
Right. So apart from your website, is that the best way for people to get in touch with you, or is there another method, or just go through website keyforchange.com?
Well, yeah, if you go to my website, you can signpost over to my YouTube channel. You can find me on Facebook, and I tend to be on Insta at the moment, just because, well, I have an assistant who handles my social media posts. I do my story, because I've become to get to be so busy now that it's tricky for me to hold. So we give thanks for that. You know, I'm very grateful for that. Who knew that I would get to the day where I could employ someone to assist me? But it's best to play.
We're going to have to stop because we've literally got like 19 seconds remaining. So we just want to say thank you, sis, for joining us. Guys, check out Keeley. Go to her Instagram, connect with her. She's a queen. I'm on her course, and believe you me, it is blessing me. So guys, until next time, we will see you next week, Sunday. Stay tuned. Peace.